Let's jump right into it. So we had a number one versus number one matchup.
Yeah,
Georgia beat Tennessee 27-13. Really wasn't that close, if that's fair to say.
right.
You're the resident Georgia fan. What are
hmm
your initial thoughts? What did you take away from this game?
Georgia had 10 sacks all year leading into this game. I counted personally eight. Now they're only listed as six. When watching the game, like I was keeping track, somehow they came up with six. I had eight. I know you could like when a guy's scrambling. Either way, it was a very impressive number. Hendon Hooker's a really good quarterback. I'm not trying to say that he's not a good quarterback. This was a different level of defense than anything he's played against. Yeah, they weren't. Tennessee was out of rhythm. The fans, by the way, the stadium was going bananas. Tennessee's
Yes.
whole offensive scheme was it was ineffective for large chunks of that game. That was the number one offense in the country. They didn't score a touchdown until garbage time, like 4 minutes left in the game. So yeah, hey, that Georgia's defense is legitimate. They played two top five offenses in total offense with
Mhm.
Tennessee and Oregon, combined total of 16 points. Combined total of 16 points between those two offenses. So yeah, Georgia's defense, they lost all those guys from last year. And they might be better. Like
Yeah.
they or statistically, they are better to this point. So yeah, it was incredible. The corners, the secondary, it was all working for the defense. Guys were flying around. Yeah, I just I'll stop here in a little bit and my rant will be over. I don't want to rant. I'm not going to rant. Tennessee fans were the most arrogant fans leading up to this game, I will say. And not just Tennessee fans. There was national media types that every single person picked Tennessee. Every one of them did. And like, yeah, we apparently forgot. Like somehow it left us so quickly that the most physical team generally wins, especially these big games. They do. And Georgia was absolutely going to be the most physical team out there. Yeah, they were able to run the ball. They were able to stop the run. Tennessee almost completely one-dimensional, trying to throw the ball. And yeah, it was great. I loved it all. It was a big time matchup, man. Like that's
Mhm.
what the game. We have to enjoy these while we have them. This game isn't going to mean almost anything when we go to a 12-team playoff. But that Saturday, man, that meant a lot
Mhm.
for a lot of people in both states. So yeah, it's it feels really good. Like it just yeah, Stetson Bennett, he is doubted so much, and I'm one of them, by the way. Like I'm not the biggest Stetson guy, but there is no doubt about it that in the biggest games, the dude absolutely plays. He outplayed Hendon Hooker in this game. There's no other way around it. He was dynamic, man. I Georgia looking really really good going forward. What'd you take from it, just from as a neutral observer?
Yeah, all of that. I kind of took away from it. Oh, actually, when Georgia really wants to play well, they will.
Yeah,
Stetson hit some deep throws. He
yeah,
had some runs. He looked good. I mean, I know they won a national title with Stetson Bennett as their quarterback last year. I think 2022 Stetson Bennett, the 25-year-old version of Stetson Bennett, is like actually legitimately really good. I think
yeah,
he's really good.
yeah,
What else can you say about the rest of their team? I mean, they're the best team in the country. I don't think it's all that terribly close. Maybe Ohio State has an argument. Maybe Michigan might have a slight argument, but Georgia is
yeah.
the best team in the country. They looked so good. I mean, we were both shocked when the line came out at 8.5 in favor of Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and Luke Bryan was the only guy on College Game Day, the Georgia fan, to actually pick Georgia to win the game outright.
Yes, yes. I
And
know.
it wasn't close. Georgia just boat raced him from the opening whistle. Clearly the superior team. And then that's not even a knock on Tennessee.
Right.
Like it's not that Tennessee is bad or anything like that. Georgia's just really freaking good. And I'm sorry to go big picture right off the bat here, but like question for you because I haven't answered this question, but I want to hear your answer. Georgia or the field for the national title? Georgia or the field?
I think one of the hardest things to do in sports is to repeat as
No, I
champs.
didn't ask you. I didn't ask you if it's hard to repeat.
Okay,
Georgia or the field, Ashton?
it's very very difficult to repeat. I just the field. I'm still on the field.
Okay.
I mean Saturday was wonderful. The field, though, the field. Yeah, I'm going to take the other 3 playoff teams and take my chances against Georgia. Is that smart? Maybe not. Is Georgia the betting favorite? Absolutely. They're going to be number 1 tomorrow night when the rankings come out, and they absolutely should be. By the way, they hammered 2 really, really good football teams in Tennessee and Oregon. Those are good football teams, and they beat them down, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
That, yes, still the field though for me. I don't want to get blinders on. Don't get me wrong. I feel really, really good about our chances after a game like that, especially considering the fact that Alabama goes down. We won't have to play Alabama probably. Like, it's probably going to be LSU. I feel way better about playing LSU than Bryce Young. I want no part of Bryce Young in Alabama anymore. So yeah, I feel really good about it. But still the field. I have to keep going back to that. The field, it's hard to repeat, right?
Sure. Well, I'm not a Georgia fan, so I can just go ahead and say I'm taking Georgia over the field to win the national title this year. And it's a huge part. I mean, if you had asked you right after the game, I probably would have said no. I probably said the field. But the fact that Alabama got their second loss later on,
That's big.
Yeah. I mean, who can beat Georgia? Ohio State on a great day can probably beat Georgia.
Yeah.
You could argue Michigan, but I'd have a hard time buying it. And
we saw that last year. Yeah, we saw that a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan is basically Georgia with 4 stars instead of 5 stars.
Yeah, that's right.
Who else has a prayer against Georgia? Maybe like on a neutral field if Tennessee makes some adjustments. Like maybe if everything goes right. They did miss a couple deep shots that they had been hitting all year. I think Ohio State, Tennessee, like of the teams that realistically Georgia might end up playing from here on out. Yeah, it's maybe those 2 teams, and I'm taking Georgia against the field.
Hendon Hooker was pressured. I think he had 49 dropbacks. I think was the amount. 49 dropbacks, pressured on 20 of them. 20 that he had pressure on. That's why, in my opinion, he was missing downfield. I don't think he was ever comfortable. I don't think he was comfortable. I think I don't know if you watched, but like that early sack that was a safety. Jalen Carter strips him in the end zone. That was a safety. I mean, you won't be able to convince me that was not a safety. The refs just had a terrible job of explaining it.
Well, the call was
5-minute review. Like, I didn't understand any of it. Did you get that?
I think that if you want to make an argument that it was a incomplete pass, I would buy that. But the call in the field was a fumble, and recovered outside of the end zone, which very clearly is not what happened.
Right.
So
no, I know.
The fact that the play stood as called didn't make any sense. I don't know.
It's kind of what refs have been doing that a little bit recently. Like, for one, they like to let the call stand. And okay, I mean, if it's not clear and obvious, for one, this was very, I mean, I don't think it got a whole lot more clear and obvious. He was clearly down before he fumbled again. But like, they always want to just spot the ball at the 1. Like when when Stetson scored his first touchdown, they were like, you're out at the 1. Like, we don't really know what happened. So like, let's just, we think you're at the 1. Like, yeah, I don't know. Just make the right call there. The officiating wasn't great in the game. I don't want to make this about officiating because it really didn't matter. I mean, yeah, the 2 points didn't matter, but they really did take 2 points off the board for my team. That I'm a little salty about that still. Other than that, yeah, no, I have no other complaints. Georgia they were terrific in almost all facets. They could run the ball, they stopped the run, they threw the ball, and they stopped the throw. Like, yeah, it's pressure. The pressure up front was incredible. Like missing your best pass rusher, first round pass rusher, Nolan Smith goes down. He's out for the year.
Right.
And it didn't even matter. Like none of it freaking mattered because they came from everywhere. Like we had dudes all over the place getting sacks. So yeah, really good looking forward. I admire your boldness in saying that you take Georgia over the field. I'd like to be that bold and confident. There's a lot left yet. There's going to be a lot of games left to play. There's a lot of narrative out there still. I would maybe be selling a little bit on Georgia right now. This is maybe that felt like, yeah, Georgia played really well. It's hard to play that good again.
I will say on the Tennessee side of things, I mean, obviously they lost. That's a big deal. After the evening with Bama and Clemson losing, I think they're right in line for the playoff. Like they got a great shot of making it.
They lost in their percentage. The chances of making the playoff went up. I think their actual odds to win the national championship actually went up on Saturday.
Wow.
Like that and it wasn't, I don't think it had a whole lot to do with their game as much as it did just everything else kind of falling into place for them.
Right.
Alabama going down, Clemson going down, they could really get in. They could give Tennessee, Ohio State is the matchup I have to have. Like I
Yeah.
need that in the playoff. I would love every second. That would be awesome.
That would be very fun. And any more thoughts on the Georgia Tennessee matchup before we move on here?
No, I just to all the fans out there, to all the media types. There, Eric Ainge, an old Tennessee quarterback, last week, like a week ago, he went and said that Georgia doesn't have much of a home field advantage. He actually said that like their fans aren't very loud. Jordan Rodgers, by the way, Aaron Rodgers' brother, SEC network analyst, said that Georgia doesn't have any receivers. They have no talent, no playmakers. He said, I mean, Brock Bowers included, I guess. Like I didn't understand that at all. Like wrong. Like just couldn't have been more wrong. There was an anonymous coach from ESPN. ESPN quoted this guy. He said that Tennessee was going to hang half 100 on him. He said Georgia's corners can't run, and they have no pass rush. Like these are guys that are paid to do this, man. Paid to do it. You couldn't have been more wrong. I'm waiting for apologies. Like I really need apologies from those guys. Other than that, that's about it. It felt really good just to see all those guys be that wrong.
Yeah, the crazy thing is we were shocked by we both were surprised at the line. 8.5 points felt like it was too much. Vegas is good at their jobs. They clearly knew something that the rest of the country could not figure out.
Correct.
And we saw the best of Georgia. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about LSU and Alabama. Crazy. I'll give a little props to you right off the bat here. You didn't necessarily predict it in the offseason, but you kind of like, hey, watch out for this game. Like you can kind of put that out there.
I did.
And it happened, man. It went to overtime. LSU goes for the 2-point conversion in the win, which I respect. Absolutely. That's what you should do against Alabama in that situation. That's what Auburn should have done last year, and they did not.
Fair enough.
LSU won this game against Alabama. It seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like there were a lot of chances for Alabama to kind of take control, and they just could never quite do it.
They had many chances to put him away where Alabama just needed to stop, especially there in the fourth quarter, whereas like Bryce Young goes, scores. It's like, oh, okay. Like they're going to get an interception or Will Anderson's going to come blow up a play, sack, strip, fumble, game over. So it happened multiple times and you're just waiting for it to happen. And credit to LSU, they never they were competitive in that game. Like they were not scared of Alabama at all. They didn't back down an inch, man. Like they took the fight to Alabama. They were the more aggressive team. It showed later in the play calling, especially in overtime. And they took shots. Like they just kept punching. And you get a chance in overtime with a really good quarterback that's playing well, especially like Brian Kelly said, the goal is to get number 5 out on the edge. Like get him on the edge, roll him out, let him make a play. And he did that in both plays for LSU, both scores in overtime, the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. That's really great. Yeah, huge win for LSU. That was there was so much. This game is probably going to go down as the bigger of the two games, of the two SEC games.
Right.
The Alabama LSU game had, I mean, huge consequences. Like we're talking years down the road, we can still look back at this game and be like, "Oh, is that when things changed? Like, is that when Brian Kelly? Like, is that when Nick Saban kind of started faltering? Like, there's so many different ways you can go with it." Yeah, Alabama was not. It's not what you were used to seeing with Alabama. You were used to seeing one of their guys, like I've said, Turner, Anderson, DJ Dale, any of the defensive linemen go make a play. Like that's what that's vintage Alabama. That's what they do in the fourth quarter. They win football games. They don't lose these late games. And yeah, that was what was it was shocking to see. Bryce Young is an unbelievable talent at quarterback. But man, he covers up a multitude of sins for that team because they are not they're not complete. They are not complete outside of Bryce Young.
The job that LSU has done on defense this year with Matt House, their defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Clearly a great hire by Brian Kelly. Their defense is legit.
Yes.
We saw going into the season, at least my opinion was that their secondary was pretty weak. And it has gotten exploited a few times. Tennessee ripped them apart. But they're coming around. I mean, Harold Perkins, the freshman linebacker, he's really good. He's really good. they're really good. They're
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anything in particular that LSU is like best in the country at,
sure.
but they figured out a way to be good at everything. And I mean, hats off to them. Hats off to Brian Kelly. I'll say it as the Notre Dame guy who's not a huge fan of Brian Kelly for obvious
Right.
reasons.
Sure.
Like he has done an excellent job. You go back 1 year, and Brian Kelly's in the middle of his fifth consecutive season at Notre Dame, winning 10+ games in a good situation, and then he left. And the crazy thing is, I think Brian Kelly is better off, and I think Notre Dame is better off for what they needed.
Wow.
Brian
Yeah.
Kelly at LSU, right after the game, you got a couple of crystal balls from 5-star players.
Yes.
Like, and that was not a thing that he was not getting 5 stars at Notre Dame.
Right.
He was not recruiting at the level that he is now at LSU. He's about to sign a class at LSU that's better than any class he ever signed at Notre Dame.
Sure.
Notre Dame is also about to sign a class better than any that they had under Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, I feel based on everything that happened Saturday night, we'll talk more about Notre Dame game later. Like Notre Dame needed a recruiter to get them over the hump. Brian Kelly needed a program that could recruit without him. not totally without him, but you know what I'm trying to say. He doesn't have
Sure.
to be the number one guy recruiting wise, and they can still sign a great class. And he can be that steadying influence that LSU has sorely needed for a while. And
Mhm.
you want to talk about fit? That was the talk all offseason
Right.
was the fit
Yeah.
of Brian Kelly
He's
at
a
LSU.
bad fit. That's right.
I think he might be a better fit at LSU than he was at Notre Dame.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting was you mentioned Harold Perkins, but
Mhm.
that whole defense flew around. Like
Yeah,
they fly around. They're maybe like they're raw. Like Perkins is a
sure.
true freshman. He made like there's mistakes, sure. But like that guy, like they have confidence in their players. Kelly and the players, something has clicked and bonded because those players fly around for him. There's no hesitation. They just go. And there's something to that. Like that's really cool when you're playing a name like Alabama, where you're scared of like a lot of teams lose to the helmets. LSU teams in years past have simply lost because the Alabama helmets walked out on the other side of the field and they lost to that. And this team, they trailed at times late in the game. They trailed in the fourth quarter and they just kept swinging. That was what was really cool to see. You talk about Harold Perkins. You talk about like he's young. I mean, freshman 5-star. BJ Ojolari played really well. I mean, guys that are getting sacks and pressures. Ali Gay, another like they have good pass rushers. I'd say that LSU's pass rushers are up there with anyone's in the country. Yeah, no, their receivers are really good. Like Keishon Butte,
Yeah.
like we've learned that he can still play. Neighbors, really good. The freshman tight end was it Mason Taylor who caught the
Yeah.
late touchdown there in the 2-point conversion as well. I'm right there with you. It seems to be a fit. Like this really seems to work. Yeah, he has won everyone over. No one is complaining about a bad accent, a bad Southern Cajun
Yeah.
accent now. He beat Alabama in his first shot. He gives himself. He can say whatever he wants right now. He can have whatever accent he chooses to have. You beat Alabama, you become a very quick culture fit in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So hey, awesome for LSU. All the credit goes their way.
Yeah, you almost can't overstate what that does for the program going
Huge.
forward.
Yes.
And let's talk about the Alabama side of things. Is this just as simple as like Bill O'Brien and Pete Golding are not very good coordinators?
I'm okay. Bryce Young's probably the best quarterback that has ever played on a Nick Saban team.
Yeah.
And he's going to leave without a national championship. He was on the 2020 team, but I mean, that was Mac Jones' team.
Right.
I mean, Bryce was the backup there, clearly. But Bryce Young won a Heisman Trophy. Bryce Young is electric. He is absolutely electric. Like, yeah, in college football, that dude's about as good as it gets. Like, that dude's incredible. The third down throw that he made, like the last touchdown for Alabama to take the lead there, it was just like they had guys all over him. He's so small, but like shifty, keeping his eyes downfield all at the same time. The total package from Bryce Young, but they don't have much else. Like they don't have much else other than Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a transfer from Georgia Tech. He was a Georgia Tech transfer. Other than him, they don't have any weapons. Like it's him and Cameron Latu. Like who else does Bryce Young? That's who he trusts to throw the ball to. I mean, clearly. No, it's a little concerning from just an Alabama standpoint. You mentioned the coordinators. Yes, the coordinators are not very good. Yes, they are both probably going to be gone at the end of this year.
Take out the probably. I think it's guaranteed.
They're gone. Yes, they're gone. Sorry, they're gone. This is Alabama's first time losing 2 regular season games before the Iron Bowl since 2010.
Yeah.
2010. We haven't had to call an Alabama team in for questioning like this since they lost the playoff in 2014 to Ohio State. Remember, like that was the famous clip where like Joel Klatt and Colin Cowherd's like, it's over. And they're like, yeah, it is. Like they're going to win some games, but it's over. It could be over. Like this could be. I don't know, man. He's getting a little old. Does he want to? There's cracks in the foundation. Saban's getting a little older. How is he going? Is he going to want to stick around and fix that? He can. He absolutely can. Like, my goodness, I'm not questioning that. But does he want to? Because clearly the toughness left with Kirby Smart. The toughness, what you saw on Saturday, the Alabama defenses have not looked the same since Kirby left. That's the truth of the matter. And the offense has taken a step forward, but you're finding the offense is not enough to carry them anymore because that defense is not very good for Alabama right now.
The offense was good enough to carry them when they had all these stud receivers out there. But you're not seeing that right now. And they've recruited well at receiver, so it makes you wonder, like, is there a development problem? Is there a scheme problem? What all is going on there? I do think, it's possible that it's over. It's possible it's over. I do think that if Saban nails these 2 coordinator hires in the offseason, he's bringing in the number 1 class in the country again.
Yeah, of all time, this is the most talented Alabama team that he's ever had. Ever. Yeah. He has all the talent in the world. And I heard someone today saying, like, well, Saban, he's not able to keep up with the recruiting. Like the recruiting, this NIL stuff is making so that parity's coming and Saban can't recruit like this anymore. He's signing the number 1 class again. Like he has the most talented team of all time. And the receivers that we talked about, like Ja'Cory Brooks, 5-star, like Jermaine Burton, the transfer from Georgia, 5-star, JoJo Earl, Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice, they have dudes. Like they have dudes. The development and the toughness, the culture it's not there. It's not what it used to be. We'll say that. They can rebound. They probably will. All he needs is like he's going to come out and give you like 2 names. Like I'm going to hire this guy for offensive coordinator, this guy for defensive coordinator. Like, well, they'll probably win again next year. Like that. Yeah, like that could absolutely happen. It probably will. But there's doubt. For the first time in a lot of years, there is doubt. You can say that. Yeah,
we thought it was just the easiest over on the season win total that you could imagine at 10.5 in the offseason.
We lost
for us, man. Vegas always wins. But
wow.
There's a lot of soul searching for them to do when it comes to some of the staff hires and what are they looking for. The talent will be there. We'll see what else is there going forward.
Sure.
Okay, so on the same night that Brian Kelly won the type of game he could never win at Notre Dame, Notre Dame won the type of game that they could never win with Brian Kelly. Notre Dame beats Clemson, and the score was 35-14. Really wasn't that close. This game was 28-0. It was 35-7. Clemson scored late to make it look a little closer.
Yeah.
Now, I do think it is fair. We said Clemson was probably a little bit fraudulent at number 4. That feels like it was clear looking backward. Sure. But still, this was a little bit mind-blowing to me. I did not expect this at all as a Notre Dame fan. This is Notre Dame's best win this century, and it's not. Yeah, wow. I don't think it's all that I don't know that you can argue with that all that much. Yeah, they beat number 2. They beat number 1 Clemson 2 years ago without Trevor Lawrence and Tyler Davis and Skalski and all these guys, and that was in double overtime.
Yep.
This Clemson team is not quite as good as that team, but they absolutely put them in a meat grinder and just destroy. Yeah. They did from the opening snap to the end. It was like physical domination on both lines of scrimmage.
Yes.
If I'd have told you going in, Notre Dame is going to pass for 85 yards.
85. Yeah.
Their leading wide receiver will have 15 yards receiving. What? There's no way I mean, you probably expect a 35-14 score.
Yeah. Right.
But
Yeah.
flipped. And the fact that Notre Dame was able to run the ball at will when everybody in the stadium knew it was coming, because everybody knew Notre Dame is not going to be able to pass the ball. There were 6 third downs where Notre Dame passed the ball, and they did not convert a single one of those 6. They could not pass. Drew Pine, God bless him, he is not a good quarterback.
He's not. No,
he is not a good quarterback, and it didn't matter. They just absolutely pounded Clemson into submission, and Clemson has one of the best defensive lines in the country, and it didn't matter.
This was the Notre Dame offensive line performance that we were hoping to see against Ohio State.
Right.
Like, just absolutely, bulldozing. You mentioned like the running attack. They outrushed Clemson 263-90. Yeah. Like, which is, Clemson has, you mentioned just a good defensive line. They've always had a good defensive line. Like, they have good line play. That's kind of Clemson's calling card. They're at least not going to get pushed around up front. Like, you wouldn't expect that. That was kind of unexpected. No, it was shocking to watch. I think the interceptions, there was a block punt for a touchdown, a long pick six. And to be able to do that, and when every single person, like, Clemson absolutely knew that Drew Pine was not going to be throwing the ball. Like 1st and 10, you're running, like, you're handing the ball off every single time. He might go to Michael Mayer, like, possibly, but probably not. Like, that was incredible. That was it.
Notre Dame's longest completion was 17 yards.
Yeah.
Their longest run was 20 yards.
Yeah.
That was all about just, we're going to get 5 yards every single play, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Does it say more about Notre Dame or Clemson?
I think for this season specifically, it probably says more about Clemson. I do think it's a bigger statement for Notre Dame in the long run, as far as it was a statement to the recruits out there. Their top recruit, 5-star Peyton Bowen, the safety, he was at this game. He's been known to be waffling for a long time. He's got lots of friends committed to Oklahoma and Texas A&M.
Okay.
And for guys like that, this, I think, was that stake. Hey, listen, like, when Marcus Freeman doesn't quite have all of this figured out yet, but when he gets it right, it's going to be really good. And when Notre Dame is at their best under Marcus Freeman, it's already better than anything they ever were in the last 12 years under Brian Kelly. And that's not a knock on Brian Kelly. It's saying that Marcus Freeman might have that extra gear. Yeah, he's still figuring things out. Yes, they lost to Marshall. They lost to Stanford, which is worse than the Marshall loss, by the way.
Yeah.
But
yes, it is.
But they're on their way to figuring it out. And once they figure it out, it's going to be really freaking good. So for this season, it says more about Clemson. For the long run, I think it's a bigger statement for Notre Dame.
Running for 5.6 yards per rush against Clemson is not for the faint of heart. Like, that, that's not fluky either. Like, that's quarters. That's 4 quarters of them. Okay, they're doing this, and we actually can't stop that. Like, that's what that was. So and to do it without explosive plays too, like, that's not an overinflated stat. Like, that's not them. Well, like, we hit a couple 275 yarders and then kind of went 3 and out a couple of times. Like, no, they were more efficient on third down. Like, Clemson was not very good on third down. They were 0 for 1 on fourth. Clemson, man. Like, that's Notre Dame's great, and, like, good for you guys. That's awesome. Like, that's a huge win for a first-year coach to get momentum. Just recruiting, the whole energy that's awesome. But what about Clemson? Like, Clemson they have quarterback problems. You mentioned Drew Pine not being very good. DJ's not very good either. The problem is they have to throw with him. Like, he has gone back to full 2021 DJ. This is not working out, and they're trying to go to Cade to try to come and just bail him out. Like, just a kind of a get out of jail free card. Dude, the offense isn't very good. Like, the receivers, it's not good. Like, what do they do? I know these are first year coordinators. you can't really let them go after 1 year, especially if they're your guys. Like Dabo went and hired in-house for both coordinator positions, and we kind of disagreed with him at the time.
Yeah,
we like,
for sure.
Well, if you're really sure these are your guys, like, okay, but we'd rather you go get someone else. He didn't listen. He stayed with those guys. They're going to have to, they're probably not going to get rid of him this year. Like, probably not, unless Jeff Scott comes back. Maybe. Possibility. Hey, fingers crossed if you're Clemson. They have real issues. I think Clemson and Alabama, I think they're kind of in the same boat. They have issues. Clemson's not recruiting like Alabama is. Alabama can kind of cover things up so much quicker. Clemson is not so much. Like, Venable's not there either. Like would this happen under a Venable's coach defense? Like you can't imagine that it would. Maybe, but like you just couldn't. This didn't happen. It didn't happen under a Venable's Clemson defense. It didn't. That just didn't happen where they were just physically beat. Seldom was that the case. So yeah, you're left searching for answers after this, because they're probably out of the playoff. Like, I don't think Clemson gets in right now.
Yeah, just on the staff thought of things, I have to give. So I got this thought from Bud Elliott. So I'm not saying this is an original thought from me, but
Okay.
he pointed out that really nobody on the offensive staff has much experience outside of Clemson's system. You'll see some situations where teams they'll hire from within, but then they'll bring in position coaches that have experience elsewhere that can bring other thoughts and new thoughts. Like, hey, maybe like over here when I was here, we tried this in this situation and it worked. Clemson, it's all in house, man, and like I don't know that anybody there, like there's no new ideas because they've all just been there basically, and
yeah,
they just didn't have any answers. It looked very stagnant. They didn't run DJ really in the first half. They were throwing a lot of screen passes that Notre Dame was tackling well on.
Right.
When they finally threw the ball down the field in the second half, you had Benjamin Morrison, the true freshman corner, return it for a 96-yard interception return for a touchdown.
Yes.
By the way, just as a side note, like I've been a Notre Dame fan for a very long time, and I think true freshman Benjamin Morrison might be the best cornerback I've ever seen at Notre Dame. Which is saying something both about the way Notre Dame cornerbacks have historically played and also the way they've started recruiting just since Marcus Freeman took over as defensive coordinator.
There you go.
Yeah, for Clemson, like I know it's only been a year, like at the end of this year, but I think something has to change. I really think it has to change. And you mentioned Jeff Scott. Jeff Scott just got fired by USF.
Yeah.
I think you could bring him back, but again, you're still just kind of taking what Clemson has done for 10 years and trying to do that again. I think if I was a Clemson fan, I'd be hoping for an outside hire.
Right. Like that's the thing, right? Like, so like you're trying to get some, like a little, maybe some, yeah. We were both critical, at the time when he made these hires, both me and you were on here and we were like, it might be a good idea to go get someone else. You're Clemson, you can get whoever you want. It might be a good idea. It felt like reaches. It felt like he was reaching for both of his coordinators, and he didn't have to. He really didn't have to. So yeah, it's I don't have a whole lot to say about them right now. Like that's tough. That's a tough look, and they could lose again. Clemson could absolutely lose again this year. Have to play maybe North Carolina in the championship game. Clemson maybe not done losing this year yet.
Yeah, there's a very real chance that they could lose again this year. Starting right away this week with Louisville. That's on the table now. I do think that, yeah, just the playoff talk. There's still an outside shot they can make it, just because it feels like we're a little thin at the top with who can actually get in.
Yeah.
That being said, that loss was really bad, and they're hoping that all the committee members were only focused on Alabama, LSU at that time and weren't paying attention. That was a really bad loss. That's the type of loss that kept a one-loss Ohio State out the year that they lost to Iowa and just got destroyed. That was that type of loss. I think that might be the type of loss that can keep a one-loss conference champ out of the playoff.
I'll say this. Right now, if you're choosing between Clemson and Tennessee, I think Tennessee is going to be the choice for people.
For sure.
Like I don't think there's, even if Clemson wins an ACC championship, I still think that one loss Tennessee, non-division champ, gets in over them right now just because of the wins. Like the wins that they have stacked up. Clemson hasn't really beaten anyone, and you got hammered by Notre Dame. Like it's not tough for their the playoff hopes.
Yeah, I don't think the Tennessee thing is all that close. And an undefeated TCU would be over them as well. I think the question is like, will a one-loss Pac-12 champ be over Clemson? And I think probably they would.
You think like Oregon maybe? Yeah.
They might. I know they also have a bad loss, but at least that was to Georgia.
Right. Yeah, fair. No, the I think something to okay. Just a few years ago, it was Alabama, Clemson. They will repeat as like they will always meet. They met all the time, and everyone else was kind of like, we're just done with it. They need 4 new coordinators between those two teams. They have to have 4 new coordinators. Like, what world are we even living in where Alabama and Clemson are not making good coordinator hires? That's what's really baffling to me more than anything else, because the talent's still there for both of these teams. Like Klubnik's a good ball player. Alabama has dudes. Like so does Clemson. They're fine. Like just on the player side. Yeah, coordinators. That was very surprising to see teams not just lose but get out coached. That was surprising.
And it's just a reminder, like when you're judging the head coach, recruiting is right up there for what's important. Your coordinator hires are right there. Like that's so big. Even Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, maybe the 2 best coaches of our lifetimes, I would say.
Yes,
like,
right. That's right.
A season can go wrong because you made some bad hires. That's just frankly how. There's nothing else to say other than that. Like the hires you make are so important as a head coach.
Yeah. If you need any confirmation for that, just check Ohio State for the last 3 years. They like if they had a good defensive coordinator the last 3 years, they probably would have won at least one title somewhere in there.
Right.
You had Justin Fields there, like CJ Stroud, and just having one missing coordinator, one guy that's not clicking on the same page as everyone else, can really derail a team season.
Yeah, at Clemson this last offseason, it seemed like they sort of made their hires as if they were still little old Clemson. And there's a certain point where you have to realize you're one of the big boys. Go make a big boy hire. And I think that's what they need to do this offseason.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. A lot of other games to talk about. Brief thoughts maybe on Ohio State Northwestern, 21-7, much closer than anticipated. It was a bad weather game, wind, all of that good stuff. Any takeaways from this game for you?
Man, Ohio State is still not very physical, man.
They're not.
I watched this game probably more than I should have. They got stoned up front on some 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts, completely stuffed. This is Ohio State. They should be physically running over Northwestern. Northwestern is not a good football team. They're 1-8.
They suck.
Their only win was in week 0 in Ireland against Nebraska and Scott Frost, Nebraska. Northwestern's not very good. They didn't even really try to throw the ball that much. Like they had went wildcat for large sections of this game, and it was 7-7 at halftime.
Yeah.
Ohio State, they could get run over by Michigan. Like that's a real thing that could happen. They're praying for good weather.
Oh,
that they don't want to get in a snowstorm like they did last year against Michigan again, because they could be in trouble, man. They could really be in trouble. I think Ohio State also struggling with a little bit the same thing that Alabama's struggling with right now. And they got a little cute on offense. It's finesse. They're very finesse on offense. And you're seeing teams that are bigger, like I'm just gonna come and impose my will. I'm just going to beat you up front. And you see those teams kind of shrink back from a little bit when another team's not scared of their helmets and just keep swinging. They're not scared. They're not intimidated by the name on the jersey. They just keep swinging and taking shots. Yeah, Ohio State, they're probably going to be 2. I would say they're still probably going to be 2 in the next ranking tomorrow night. Be surprised if they're not, whatever. But you could put Michigan at 2 over Ohio State for me. I think Michigan's playing better of the 2, and they didn't even look that good.
Yeah, I think if Ohio State can get to the playoff, like I think if they can get there, they'll do
well once they make it.
Yeah, they'll be the second best team there, and they'll have a chance to beat Georgia. They'll have a chance. Okay. The issue is, can they get through the cold weather to get to the playoff? Because the playoff will be played in warmer locations, neutral sites, all of that.
In a dome or something,
The passing game will look great in a southern location.
Yeah.
like you said, they are hoping for 3 mile per hour winds and
Yes.
no snow or rain or anything when they play Michigan. Because if that's what they get, they're probably going to win relatively comfortably. If they don't get that, it could be
Oh,
ugly.
I don't think I think Michigan can beat them straight up right now.
Could be.
I think Michigan, you have to look at teams that are just, I'm going to show up and play my style, and you will play my style. Like, I will make you play this way. Georgia did that to
Right.
Tennessee this week. I think Michigan can do it to Ohio State again.
Hmm.
I think Michigan is a matchup nightmare for Ohio State. That's not who Michigan is. That's absolutely not what Ohio State wants to run into. So yeah, this game might have exposed that a little bit. Northwestern was just able to kind of keep gut punching and they eventually ran out of steam. I mean, Northwestern's not a good football team, but Ohio State got a garbage time touchdown. This was 14-7 in the fourth quarter. This was a close football game.
Yeah. Just looking ahead to Ohio State, Michigan a little more, like Ohio State is going to have to put Michigan in a situation where they have to pass the ball. If Michigan is able to run with Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, it's going to be all the way down to the wire.
JJ McCarthy, dual threat. They didn't have that last year.
True.
Dual threat. I like that.
Yeah. All right. TCU beat Texas Tech 34-24. Yet another game where TCU was trailing and found a way to come back and finally put it away in the fourth quarter. TCU just figures out ways to win. They're kind of this year's team that, like, they're going to be ranked number 4 in the country, I think, and they deserve it because they keep winning. They're not actually the 4th best team in the country, but they just keep finding ways to win, and there's lots of teams that would have liked to find a way to win on Saturday that did not. So props to TCU.
Fair. There is something to be said just for winning. Like, I won last Saturday. Did you? No. Like, so don't talk to me about how you're a better football team. Yeah, no, it's great. They're 9-0. 9-0, and they're still probably the 6th or 7th best team in the country. Like, they're not impressing me. Fair enough. I think Oregon beats them. I think UCLA would beat them. USC could maybe even beat them. Ole Miss perhaps, but they won. Like, there's something to be said for, like, I won. Did you? And Max Duggan, he only completed 12 passes. They were able to win against Texas Tech, who's scrappy at times. Texas Tech team, they can fight. They beat Texas early on in the year. TCU has to play Texas next week, this upcoming Saturday at home. Vegas has Texas as a 7-point favorite.
Yeah.
Right now. That's at least the last that I saw.
Yep.
That's wild to me. That is wild to me. Yeah. Checking that out. I don't know. Anything else to take? Is there anything that we're missing on TCU? There's kind of just a game where we survived in a week where a lot of teams didn't. We survived and moved on.
Well, they had to play without the best receiver, and there's something to that where they took Texas Tech's best shot. Let's not forget Texas Tech did beat Texas this year. Like, Texas Tech is not terrible. They're not great, but they took a good shot from Texas Tech and found a way to win without doing their main thing. Like, they won a different way. They kind of won ugly as opposed to putting up 48 points or whatever, which they've had to win ugly a few times this year, and they've managed to do it every time. If they beat Texas this week, I think then we will be able to say that they're a little bit more legitimate because that is a team that is supposed to beat them, according to Vegas.
Any chance TCU goes undefeated? Because they have at Texas, at Baylor, home to Iowa State, and then you have to go to a Big 12 championship game playing someone again, possibly. I don't even want to speculate. Who knows who it's the Big 12. It could be anybody.
Right. There's a chance
they go undefeated?
There's a chance they go 13-0. There's also a chance they go 9-3. Like that, it's all out there.
They lose out. Yeah. Okay.
If you tell me what's going to happen, like I can't tell you you're wrong. There's anything could happen. Anything could happen. It's the Big 12.
Dave Aranda gets them the week after Texas, so TCU is going to be all in on this Texas game. Dave Aranda gets them the next week. Baylor, I'm just go ahead and throwing that out now. I would be on Baylor. That would be the side I would be on right there. I like Dave Aranda against that offense.
All right, let's talk about another Texas team. Florida beat Texas A&M 41-24. Yeah. A&M was without a ton of players in this game. They're now 3-6.
Yeah.
That's not very good, Ashton.
No, it's not. It's the longest losing streak, I think, since 1980. I saw that. Oof. Yeah. 5 games.
What are your takeaways from this game? Do you feel like you can learn a few things from this game for either team?
Florida, okay, I'll go to the Florida side. I mean, they're
Hmm.
the winners. They put up 41 points in a win on the road in the SEC.
Sure.
That's good for Napier. That's good for Billy
Yes.
Napier. That's good for confidence. It's good for recruiting, for all of those things. Who knows? You might go take a couple of 5 stars back with you from A&M that won out now.
It's
That
true.
could be how that works for Florida. They need them, Lord knows. But yeah, really, really big win for Florida. AR played well. There's some questionable things still, like on just as far as play calling, but the team fights. The team scraps. They have every opportunity just to quit. They didn't. They're 5-4. A&M is 3-6. Like that's the difference. It's not a successful year for Florida. They lost to their 4 biggest rivals. Like that hurts, or 3 of their 4 biggest rivals. That's a gut punch. But they kept like they're still fighting. They're still fighting. They're still going on the road and winning, putting up points. The defense is kind of scrappy. Like they had a shutout in the second half. Really good for Florida. For A&M, man, on the A&M side, I don't even know where to go with it. Like what are we outside of Devon Achane? They have nothing. They have 0 things outside of that little running back who is incredible. That running back is so good. And yeah, good Lord. Like if he could play on Georgia or like almost anywhere else, like imagine him with Oregon right now, Devon Achane in Oregon offense with Bo Nix, like it would be so great. But he's stuck under this just archaic style of offense that Jimbo just is insistent on running. And even when it does work in the first half, the other team adjusts, and then Jimbo does not adjust, and it's shut out in the second half. I don't even know what to say about it anymore. It's frustrating because they have talented players. Evan Stewart, the receiver for A&M, is a dude. Like Muhammad for another receiver is a dude. The defense is actually not bad. Like they were missing almost everyone in this game. Like they have talent. They're not coached well. They're not coached well.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, like, how much do the players care at this point? Which is a really bad place to be. Like, especially when you have a coach that you cannot fire due to like being owed 17 oil wells or something. Still, like, you cannot fire him yet. The players seem, I don't want to say they've quit, but it sort of feels like they have. They just lost a 5-star commitment, Anthony Hill, the 5-star linebacker.
Just looking at it, yeah, number 2 overall next year.
It's
linebacker gone.
It's not looking pretty. This offseason is so key for Texas A&M. If they can still sign like a top 7 class and hold on to most of their good players, like there's a chance. Like there's a chance that the arrow could point back up because they have young talent. And with young talent, hope springs eternal. That said, like there's also a chance this goes off the rails. Like there's a non-zero chance 20 guys enter the portal and they lose 5 commits and it's just ugly. On the Florida side of things, we knew coming into the season Florida was not going to be very good. Their win total was at 7.
Yeah.
It was an even 7, which was a difficult number. You were slightly under, I was slightly over. I don't know what their record is going to be. It's probably going to be around there.
Yeah.
But like this is a good win for them, just because you can say we're building something. That's what Billy Napier is doing. That we've known all year. Their depth is not great. The top end talent is even not all that good. But they're building something from the ground up, and it feels like Napier. He's not doing it at warp speed, but he's at least building something.
No doubt. And kind of to go back to A&M. Because for me, that's just the bigger story here.
Sure.
Florida's doing what they should be doing. Like you're Florida, you're not trash. You should be 7-5, 8-4 would be great. I mean, you're probably not going to be 8-4, 7-5, at least bowl eligible. A&M has to win out, or they don't go bowling. They have to win out. They are a road dog at Auburn. Auburn this week, who doesn't have a coach right now. A dog to Auburn. That is shocking. Like,
yeah,
I don't have much to say other than that. I really do not. It absolutely could come apart. And the bright side is they only have to pay him. Is it $95 million guaranteed? Every single penny is guaranteed for Jimbo. What an agent. Like, what an agent that guy has. He can't go anywhere. Like there's not enough money. I know it's A&M. I'm kind of being facetious here a little bit. They're not going to let him go though. Like I just don't think you can. Not with that many guys that are young and in your program. He just signed the best recruiting class of all time, or bought, whatever you want to, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
It's a rough look. This is 5 straight. It could go to 6 this week. They could be 3-7. They're definitely not going bowling. I don't have much to say here. He has to bring in a coordinator. Like, where are all these wonderful play callers that we were talking about just 2 years ago? Like, where are all the Big 12 guys? Like Kendall Briles. We talk about Kendall Briles. Go pay Kendall Briles whatever he wants. Get him out of Arkansas, bring him here, and give him the keys. Give him the keys, step away from the offense. You do that, this offense has the ability to be a top 5 offense. They have the talent. The talent is there.
Yeah.
He's not doing it. He's not willing to do that. So, yeah, he needs to go get an offensive mind so badly. You say it could come off the rails. I think it already is. Like, I think it's already off the rails. So, yeah, we spent enough time on these games. Both of these teams are not very good. Let's move on to something else.
Yeah, one final thought. Like, it's a little wild. Like, Tommy Rees would be an excellent hire for Texas A&M. Just like, he would be an improvement, vast improvement. Just saying. All right, let's move on. Baylor beat Oklahoma 38-35. 125 people saw it. It was on ESPN Plus. Any thoughts in this game or takeaways?
No thoughts. You mentioned I was not one of the 125. I was watching any of the other really, really good games going on.
Yeah, that were not on ESPN Plus.
I don't have it.
Yeah. All right. Michigan State beat Illinois 23-15. Kind of a big upset here.
Illinois, to talk about it.
Yeah, we have to. Illinois they're still probably in line to win the division because Purdue lost to Iowa badly.
Right. That's right.
That said, like, it was their second loss. It did feel like, I don't know, like Michigan State's not very good, but this game wasn't all that terrible. I mean, it was a 1-score game technically. Yeah. Michigan State was also kind of leading the whole way. Like, it wasn't all that close.
Right. Yeah, an Illinois team that is built on running the ball, not built to come from behind. Like, once you get, Chase Brown, 33 carries, 136 yards, that's not great. It's okay, but, like, he didn't pop anything long. And, Sparty, by the way, this was the week after the tunnel fight, all the guys suspended, all the bad pub, and they come out and fight and just, punch Illinois in the face. Not with a helmet, guys. Don't just chill on that. Just physically, like, between the whistles. Mel Tucker had to have it. He really had to have it. That was something that was coming off the rails. You talk about coming off the rails as a program. It was coming off the rails, and he took a nice step in the right direction right there. That was a big win for Sparty.
Right. Okay, Liberty beats Arkansas 21-19. They were up by 16 points, I believe. It's 21-5.
That's right.
And Arkansas scored a touchdown, got the 2-point conversion, ended up scoring another touchdown, needing a 2-point conversion, and failed. This game, I think we both expected Arkansas was just like, they weren't going to blow out Liberty, but they were at least clearly the superior team. And Hugh Freeze put out his job application right there, just yelling at Auburn, "Hey, come hire me." What are your takeaways from this game?
Hugh Freeze was coaching for another job. Like, Hugh Freeze wants to get back in the SEC so badly. It's very, very obvious to everyone. I mean, the game wasn't actually that close. I mean, you kind of alluded to it. I mean, it was 21-3 at halftime. Like, Arkansas got a safety in the third quarter. Like, they had a couple touchdowns late, and I mean, they did have a chance late in the game, sure.
Yeah.
But Liberty overall came and took it to Arkansas, which is kind of surprising. Like, you really thought that KJ, Rocket Sanders, Green, like, they're going to be able to run the ball. Like, they're going to physically push around Liberty, and they didn't. They did not do that. So that was what was surprising to me, only scoring 19 points against a Liberty team that they're okay, but, like, they do not have SEC depth in the trenches. They don't. And you should be able to push them around in the third and fourth quarter running the football. Like, you should have worn them out by then. And they, Arkansas did not. So credit to Liberty. Hugh Freeze probably made himself quite a bit of money right there. I know he just had an extension at Liberty. He wants to be back in the SEC. I'm not saying it's Auburn. I'm just saying there's a lot of coaching spots available, and he's too good of a mind. He's too good of a mind to be at Liberty right now. I think he needs a Power 5 job.
Sure. Okay, Texas beat Kansas State 34-27. Felt like it felt like a bigger win than that. They felt like they were in control. I didn't watch a lot of this game, but I did tune in just enough that it seemed like Texas was in control of this game for the most part. When they're good, they're pretty freaking good. Kansas State is Kansas State
Some
good or are they not?
We're not sure. They're all 6-3. Kansas State's they were ranked at 13, 6-3. They're playing Baylor this week, also 6-3, unranked. Texas also 6-3. Like
Yeah,
it's the Big 12, man. It's the Big 12. This is exactly what we talked about. There's not much difference between the worst and the best, and anyone can beat anyone on any day. Quinn Ewers looked way better. Like we saw him in the Oklahoma State game. That was really, really rough. He looked much better. And turns out if you just give the ball to Bijan Robinson a whole bunch, like a whole
like a
bunch,
lot.
it really works out for your football team. He's pretty good at the football stuff down there. So yeah, great for Texas. Big win, setting up a really good game this week. Kansas State, I'm not sure about Kansas State. Like I think they're good. I think they're good, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, Adrian Martinez returned from injury this game. Decent numbers, 329, 2 touchdowns, but also had a pick. Texas, you mentioned Bijan Robinson, 30 carries, 209 yards, and a touchdown. That's what happens when you give him the ball most of the time.
Yeah.
So well done by them. All right, Mississippi State beat Auburn 39-33. Auburn's first game after firing Brian Harsin, and they actually fought. Like this game, they were down kind of big, and they came back.
That's right.
Thought they might actually upset Mississippi State. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about here. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
No, it was Cadillac Williams. I'm sure you probably remember him,
Yes.
the old Auburn running back from like the 2014 that went undefeated. He's the interim coach for them with Harsin gone. You mentioned they fought, they did. Like they were down big, especially I think it was 24-6 at half, came back, goes to overtime, you'll lose. So be it. Mississippi State's a better football team, but Auburn showing fight. Like they were better this week. They would have quit under Brian Harsin. They didn't quit. Yeah, I don't know who Auburn will hire. You have like Cadillac Williams is a guy. He's a legacy at Auburn. Like he has to be on that team. Awesome for him. I wish they would have pulled out a win. They didn't. It was a better football team. Whatever. Yeah, I wish the best for Auburn going forward. Please don't hire Hugh Freeze. Please don't do that. Like, yeah, make it like a good one, please.
Yes, they're a team to keep an eye on going forward. They're going to be a very interesting offseason team at the very least. All right, kind of in the Texas A&M category, we have Florida State 45, Miami 3. Just an absolute demolishing here. We said going in, Florida State needs this badly, worse than Miami does. That said, like I know Miami, we didn't say they need it necessarily, but this was bad.
Miami. So they've lost to Middle Tennessee State. They got hammered by Duke and hammered by Florida State. Like 4-5 right now. Don't really have much words. Remember Tyler Van Dyke? Remember when he was a Heisman? This was not that long ago, Vince. He was a Heisman contender beginning of this year.
Yeah.
This is not working. This is bad offense. Again, Mario Cristobal, kind of the same thing as Jimbo a little bit. Great recruiter. Game day adjustments, that's kind of always been his thing. Game day adjustments, he's not the guy. He's not your guy. Florida State's actually a good football team. I think we like Florida State beat LSU week 1. You know, at a neutral site. It's kind of neutral, it's in New Orleans. But yeah, really good for Florida State. They have a big game non-conference, especially still against Florida coming up that you really want to win to feel good about your year. Like you need to beat them and beat Syracuse. But if you do that, you finish like you could have a 9-3 season still. That is on the table for you. Really, like for a coaching staff that was facing a lot of criticism, they had a lot of bad publicity. Travis Hunter flipping and going to Jackson State. You needed results like this at Florida State. You needed a really good season. This is a huge win, and a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's bad. The last 5 games, Miami has scored a total of 82 points. They have the Broyles Award winner as their offensive coordinator from a year ago.
Yeah. That's right. Michigan got rid of him.
Yeah. Do you know who Miami's offensive coordinator was last year?
I don't.
Rhett Lashley, who is now the head coach at SMU.
Yeah.
On Saturday, when Miami was scoring 3 points, SMU scored 77 points against Houston.
Didn't he have 10? Didn't their quarterback have like 10 touchdowns?
Yeah.
Was that a stat that I actually saw?
I think it was 9 passing and 1 rushing, I believe.
Okay. Yeah.
So just saying, Miami probably has a hire to make this offseason as well. Throw them on the list with all these other teams that need offensive coordinators. So.
Why is it offensive coordinators? Like, that's what is baffling to me. Why is it like the defense? No one really is complaining too much about like Florida would maybe like to have a new defensive coordinator, whatever, year one. You have a lot of experienced offensive dudes that are really struggling. Like, it's not just Clemson. It's not just A&M. It's not just, Notre Dame. Sorry, no offense. But, like, there's a lot of guys out there that want a new mind on offense to come in and change things up. That's curious to me.
For sure. All right, one last game we should just talk about a little bit. NC State beat Wake Forest 30-21. Is it MJ Morris? Is that the true freshman quarterback for NC State that has come in and really played well the last couple weeks? Color me shocked. I figured Wake Forest would win this game. I figured NC State was done without Devin Leary. Turns out, even their offensive staff can't completely squash good quarterback talent. Sorry, that was unnecessary.
MJ Morris, he's a dual threat. I think he was committed to Georgia at one point. Like, this guy was like a 5-star at one point in his recruitment. I think he got hurt and kind of slid down the boards. Ends up at NC State. I think he probably just gets the play call and be like, "Nah, we're not doing that. I'm just going to be a dual threat and I'll just go do my thing." Like, because there's no, like, if they could have done this with Devin Leary, like, NC State would have been way better the last 2 years already. Like, they've kind of he's making plays. He's running the ball too. 3 touchdowns, no picks. He ran for almost 50 yards as well. So beating the Wake Forest team, Sam Hartman kind of sliding a little bit. Remember, it wasn't all these quarterbacks. I think it's really fun. These quarterbacks that, like, even they'll have a great first 3-4 weeks of the season, and then they kind of slide, and you don't really hear about, like, just how is that? Like, how crazy is that? Is it because teams have film on him? Maybe, but I mean, Hartman's a dude. Like, he threw almost 50 attempts. And was it last week that he had all the pick sixes just in that one funky quarter where it's weird. Wake Forest is weird, man. Like, both of these teams, they're kind of good and they're kind of not. Like, we're not really sure about these teams.
NC State is they've been one of the weirdest teams this year.
Yeah.
Their win total before the season was 8.5. We both went over, and it felt like a pretty confident play by both of us. They came out this year and just didn't look great. Like, they were winning for the most part, but they lost to Clemson. They lost to Syracuse pretty badly. But here they sit at 7-2, and they have a great shot to go over on the season win total. I don't know how.
Well,
it's still alive.
I mean, they have to go at Louisville. Boston College is probably winning. Boston College is not very good.
Yeah.
But you have to probably either beat at Louisville or at North Carolina. And you're
right.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. They a better chance to go over than not, but we're still gonna have to sweat that one out. I think.
For sure.
Over. We both went over. Is that right on the preseason?
We did. Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have. That'll be probably until the final week. We're gonna have to sweat that one out.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, I'll just run through some of the other scores that were notable. Thursday night, Coastal Carolina beat App State 35-28. Jamie Chadwell, somebody hire him. Friday night, Washington beat Oregon State 24-21. Kind of a sneaky big matchup in the Pac-12, or at least not necessarily for the Pac-12, but just two good teams going at it. Saturday, Tulane beat Tulsa 27-13. Tulane could be in the New Year's Six. Iowa beat Purdue 24-3 somehow. Iowa apparently plays offense now. Who knew? Somebody hired Brian Ferentz. North Carolina beat Virginia 31-28. This one was really not that terribly close. Like, North Carolina was up big, and then Virginia scored late. Hurt us both for our locks. You were yeah. I was feeling the same way about it as you were.
They took a knee at the 2-yard line to end the game. It was like the announcers were even talking about, like, dear Lord, please. There's some people here that need this. They were covering most of the game. Yeah, long touchdown. It's the cover drive, the good old cover drive from the Virginia offense, which was terrible all year long. They have a
Yeah.
late cover drive in the fourth quarter. That one kind of hurt me. I'm not going to lie. That one stung because I was on the right side there. I was on the right side and I lost. And I haven't had one of those in a while. This was a bad beat for both of us.
Yeah, I was right there with you, just sweating it out. And I was like, come on, really? Anyway, we'll move on. Minnesota beat Nebraska 20-13. I believe Minnesota had 0 points at halftime, found a way to turn it around. They remain a weird team. Who knows what's going on with them? Wisconsin beat Maryland 23-10. Wisconsin might be the best team in their division right now. It won't matter. They probably won't be able to win the division. Who knows? Still have the chance. Pitt beat Syracuse 19-9. Syracuse continues their free fall. Iowa State beat West Virginia 31-14. This was rough for the pod. West Virginia was our team. Looks like Neil Brown's, good chance he's done after this year. Kansas beat Oklahoma State 37-16, keeping it in the Big 12. Kansas is now bowl eligible. Good for them. Rough look for Oklahoma State, losing by 3 touchdowns to Kansas. We mentioned SMU beating Houston 77-63. I'll just say this. I was wrong. Before the season, I said Doug Belk was the next Marcus Freeman. He just gave up 77 points. So decidedly not the next Marcus Freeman. Michigan beat Rutgers 52-17. It took them way too long to figure out how to actually beat them. It was close for too long, but then when they finally flipped the switch, Michigan is really good at flipping the switch this year, apparently. And when they did, it was ugly. UCLA beat Arizona State 50-36, and USC beat California 41-35.